let's start off with your inspiration. What inspired you to start sailing?
Okay, as you know, the world, we are called the blue planet for a reason because 2/3 of our planet is actually water.
Yeah, absolutely.
And out of that, most of it is salt water, and hence one reason why that is to me one of the frontiers which is least explored among. I mean, we are going to space now. We are. It's they say the final
Frontier.
Star Trek episode, but that's what it is. But the sea is also very explored, but in a very less manner. I mean, there's a lot of things that we do not know about the ocean. And for me, inspiration comes from the fact that, as I told you earlier before we went on air, was that I worked as a marine engineer before. And at sea, there are lots of things you can see. As in, I know it's going to play with words.
Like seafood and seafood.
I mean, there is nowhere on terra firma where you can actually view the night sky as much because of ambient light.
Yeah.
Whereas at sea, I mean, of course, up in the mountains, I suppose you could do that. But when you're in the sea, there are days when we have the stars not 360 degrees, but basically the entire sky is filled with stars. You see shooting stars. It's a magnificent view.
Yeah.
And that in itself is an inspiration for one to want to consider this. But for me, it inspired because for me, it came about due to the fragility of life as I see it. Because something happened about a few years ago in my life where I realized that, we don't really live that long.
Yeah.
And we need to look at things and start to value there are more things in life than just chasing after careers, looking at what titles I have behind my name, as opposed to things that actually have meaning. Because when we came into this world, we came with a big zero because we have nothing but ourselves. Just basically ourselves as a baby. And when we go, it's the same thing. So what is the purpose of life at this point in time? So there is this element that has triggered me to want to explore and do these kinds of things in my current role at least.
So it's a journey of self-actualization, right?
Yes, it is.
Understanding the person from the inside. So in a form, this is almost like a meditation for you.
Oh, okay. Meditation is one way where people look at themselves internally.
Yeah.
For me, because, you see, to me, I've always, before I embarked on this journey, I actually considered this to be more of a spiritual journey. It's nothing, I wouldn't say, I'm a particular religion or anything. It's spiritual in the sense that where you try to connect back towards things that are bigger than yourself. Look, I was on vessels that are about 80,000 tons. Okay, they are huge vessels, about 190 meters long. Now I'm on a vessel which is 11.42 meters and 9 tons. Okay, I've scaled down maybe 20. I hope no mathematicians are going to pick on me, but it's way smaller than the other one.
Yeah.
And yet, even in big ships, when you look at how big and how small you are relative to the ocean, then you will realize that actually human beings are it's very small. It's like a speck of dust in the desert. So to me, that is a big thing.
So in the grand journey of time, where do we stand?
Yes.
Right. So, of course, let's talk about some of the more tangible aspects right now.
Right.
Where is your favorite sailing destination?
Okay, thus far I started off in Port Klang and I've reached Cape Town now.
Wow.
I mean, I've gone to, let's say, I started off in, of course, I've sailed around Southeast Asia, Maldives. I mean, that's quite common because that's initial part of my training as in preparing before I did this ocean leg. I've done Maldives, Seychelles, Tanzania, Mozambique, South Africa. I mean, these are basically the main stops. Without a doubt, I would pick South Africa. Simply because South Africa is, it's totally mind-blowing, the mountains and the way the sea is. It was quite an experience for a person like me because I've seen the sea before, but to see it in this way, it's actually a very beautiful country. Really beautiful and good people.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, if I'm not mistaken, looking back at history, right, it's also one of the ancient sailing routes, right? Like, because Cape Town, the place where everybody goes to, Cape Hope.
Cape of Good Hope.
Cape of Good Hope, yeah. Everybody stops there, they get their stuff, and also the spice trade took over from that particular era. So the sea has been a part of human life for the longest time. Civilization, culture, everything expanded through the sea, right? So it is fun to go back to those roots as well. And of course, preparation. How did you even prepare for such long voyages? And, the challenging weather conditions, we'll touch on that as well. But how did you start preparing for long voyages?
See, one of the biggest problems we face in Malaysia is we do not have ocean sailors. We have Azhar Mansour. We did it sometime in the late 90s. And also currently the Sultan of Selangor. He has also embarked while he was still a Raja Muda on a world cruise. So in terms of sailors, we do not have long distance sailors. It's non-existent. Hence, to me, getting to prepare for this, look, I'm not sponsored by any particular person. So there is even the element of preparing yourself, your family, the finances involved and all these things. So it's not something that is just, I pick up a boat today, I decide to go tomorrow. Well, if I have got sponsors, I have a big corporation sitting behind me, I suppose it's doable. But when you want to do it on your own, with no support, don't talk about financial support, we're even talking about support in the sense that, people come out and say, hoo-ha, hoorah, you're doing a good job, keep it up. We don't get that. So as it is, it's very difficult. So your preparation doesn't come from only financial aspects. It comes from getting mentally prepared for something like this, preparing the boat to go through such distances. Now, just for instance, when I got Destiny, that's my boat, it was meant for racing in regattas, as I was talking to the producer earlier. It started off as just mainly racing in regattas. I did the Royal Langkawi, I did the Raja Muda Regatta. But after a while, you realize that, I want to do something more, and as I mentioned earlier. But now, the boat that I have is not meant for long distance sailing. Then comes, this is where a bit of your engineering, maybe bit of my engineering background and things like that, I start to look and how do I make this boat sailable?
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of preparation. In fact, to be honest, I started preparing this boat in 2017.
Wow.
So it's a very long time. One, there's a lot of things that you need to do. There's the amount of money involved in it that needs to be put in to rectify or remedy certain situations. So it takes you a while to get it done. Hence, I did it little by little, in whatever way I could. So we only got all of it ready in 2021.
Wow.
So it took me about 4 years.
And also add on the PKP on top of that.
Yes. So that, actually, I wanted to leave in 2022 because of the COVID lockdown. A lot of countries in the Indian Ocean were still closed. So there was a decision that I made that, look, I'll have to delay it because it's very difficult to go into a country with all the COVID restrictions in place. So hence, I delayed for a year. But that is just on the preparation of the boat. Mentally is an entirely different ballgame because you have to be prepared that there's a lot of places that you're going to go to, which needs to be, you need to do that preparation. You got to manage the ocean, which is, I think you'll come to that in a while. And so mentally, I believe was the biggest challenge. On the boat itself, I think it's engineering. It's mechanical, something which you can fix.
It's something tangible. You can touch it. You know what you can do to make it right. But how do you get your mind ready for that long time at sea?
Yes.
Right. So, and of course, challenging weather conditions. Once you hit them, how do you prepare for that?
Okay. You see, now the good thing that we have nowadays is we have good weather predictions. Like I use PredictWind. PredictWind is a software that runs, it's by a New Zealand company, which actually projects your weather forecasting over a period of time. Now, everyone knows that it's called forecasting for a reason because it's not perfect. But in the open ocean, what you get is a lot of consistent winds. And earlier you mentioned about trade winds. Now, there's a reason why it's called trade winds, because it blows in certain directions at a time of year and they don't change. They are relatively constant throughout the year at different parts of the hemisphere and fairly consistent. But as you go towards different parts of the world, now, if you want to know in terms of challenging, would be the Mozambique Channel, which is my last trip. One of the things that I found very difficult was because here we have the elements changing on a 2 to 3 day interval.
Wow.
So our planning has to be above spot on.
Yeah.
If you get it wrong, you're going to get hammered by very strong winds. And because we are not dealing with just currents, we are dealing with current and wind, a combination of this, and they can be very dangerous. Hence, that is why a lot of time for me, at least in the last 12 months prior to departing, was preparing for this lake, the lake that I just completed between Richards Bay and Cape Town in South Africa, because it is what is considered the most difficult leg of any circumnavigation.
And of course, must have been scary, right? Just doing it alone, like just those 2 to 3 days. So you have to prepare for that. If I arrive late, what do I do? If I arrive early, what do I do? There's a lot of those calculations that go into it as well. But we talk about your aspect in sailing as well. There's of course the mental aspect of it, but of course you also need to maybe most likely learn some aspects of it from people who are already experienced. So do we need any certification for sailing, and do you have sailing certifications or training of any kind?
Okay, before I started sailing, I took on some courses on basic sailing. Okay, that's just to understand. Okay, I'm very bad at knots. It's a requirement, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you just try to survive on 1 or 2 knots and you'll be fine.
The sailor's knot.
So, but you need to know the basic of harnessing the wind. Now, that's the first thing. Once you get, and then a lot of practice. My first boat was called Freedom, and I use Freedom basically just to race the boat, so that I get a feel of the boat, get the feel of the wind. Now, sailing is about that, the feeling that you get on the boat and how you use the wind to your advantage, wind and current. Now, that is why I used about a year, I was doing about a year of racing every 2 weeks just to get the feel of it. And of course, you can do more courses to improve your knowledge. They are available. But because this is considered a leisure sport, it is not required. As in, no, okay, like let's say you want to drive on the road, you need to have a driving license.
Yes.
But for sailing, because it's an activity that is leisure, most countries in the world do not require formal certification.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's a sport that anyone can try their hand on.
Yes, of course. And sad to say, Malaysia does not have enough sailors. We need more. And we need more long-distance sailors.
Yeah.
We have short-distance sailors, but no long-distance sailors. This is what we should be looking at.
That is true. That is true. But what we're going to do right now, Mr. Fabian, we're going to be taking a very short break. And we're going to be listening to a song that you requested for, which is right here. And we're going to be back right after this. We're going to be talking more about sailing around the world. Right here on Tracks, don't go anywhere. We are talking to Fabian Fernandez, who's a sailor with the Peninsula Sailing Club, right here on Tracks. And you're currently listening to What Matters. right, welcome back to What Matters on this beautiful looking Wednesday, 13th of December 2023. We are talking about sailing the world with Fabian Fernandez, a sailor from the Peninsula Sailing Club. Right, Mr. Fabian, how do sailors contribute to preserving the marine environment?
Okay, interesting, because we are about to conclude the COP28, which is I think it's in Dubai now. And a lot of mention has been about fossil fuels. Okay, I worked in my previous life in the plantation industry, so we are bombarded by issues on environment. Now, for me, we are looking at fossil fuels as one method. Like it's like the bad word, but there are other things out there which also contributes towards environmental damage, and one of it is animal husbandry. For instance, rearing of animals. They produce a lot of methane gas, and they are bad, but we do not hear any mention of it. So this is something that I'm saying it now because I've got the opportunity to say it, but I'm just saying that is something that we should look at, because if we change our eating habits, we can actually improve the environment also. Coming back to sailing now, in the water, I use wind to be my main propulsion, and I use solar for my power.
Oh wow!
So I generate about 500 to 600 watts at the peak to power my batteries and keep all my equipment on board powered. And I have lithium batteries, similar like the ones on the aircraft. And we have them to keep the boat powered, because I don't have TNB to give me power. So we use
no cable goes that far.
No cable goes that far. Hence we use wind for propulsion. We have a diesel engine, but that diesel engine is used mainly for short distances, because there's going to be a limit of how much fuel I can carry. So hence it's a sailboat, and we try to harness as much of the wind's energy as possible.
Yeah. So as clean as you can go, that is how you're doing it.
Yes.
All right. So, and of course, the diesel engine just kicks in when you are in marina locations or things like that.
Yes.
All right. And what are some of the biggest challenges? This is very interesting for me, because I really want to know, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced while you been sailing?
Okay. To me, I would say the biggest challenge that I faced as a person, before you talk about being a sailor, is the negativity that surrounds wanting to do things that are different. People in general, when you take them out of their comfort zone, they cannot receive things that easily. They are always pushed, and they're always wondering, whether it's doable, whether it's not doable. We always sit on that. So this negativity that surrounds anything that we want to do is one of the main hurdles that one has to face. It is not about sailing. I'm not just propagating sailing. I'm talking about someone who wants to, say, climb Mount Everest, or someone who wants to walk from here to the UK. These are all the challenges that you would face. And the people around you would create these kinds of negativity. Now, ourselves, when we are trying to do these kinds of things, we'll have to find ways to overcome this. To me, that's why there is one very famous saying that says, but this is by a guy called H. Jackson Brown. I can't remember the whole phrase, but basically it's about letting go. Releasing your ropes and letting go. Okay, in this case it was a sailing sort of a phrase. But letting go, leaving Port Klang on 6th of February this year was probably the biggest challenge, because it's overcoming all those things
that came before
and leaving. And that is a big challenge for a lot of people doing difficult things.
Yes, I understand. And I don't think these challenges are, as you said, unique to a sailor, but they can be used just about everywhere. When you need to let go, you let go. All right. And let's talk about any specific skills that you found most valuable as a sailor. Maybe not tying knots, but
because I'm bad at that. Okay. Let's say for me personally, I think because I have an engineering background, that helps, because I understand things technically and mechanically, because I'm a mechanical engineer also. So that sort of makes me understand things better. And one of the things of being an engineer is we are process oriented. That means everything goes nothing goes, there's no shortcuts. You have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can't do 1, 5, 3, 2, and so on and so forth. So it has got to be structured. So when you prepare for voyages like, any kind of events like this, you tend to keep this as a perspective of how you do things. So that was one that helped me. Then project management skills that I have picked up along the way in my corporate life is another element that I think that has come about to be able to allow me to do this better. Because with project management, I treated this as a project. And then I just broke it down into sections, and then it was a very methodical process. So that helped, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the skills that you just mentioned, project management, I think it works in just about any situation. Once you're able to break it down from procurement to whatever, it's easy to do the getting part, the execution. That one we'll talk about it later. But of course, we're currently talking to Mr. Fabian Fernandez. We're going to be taking a short break. And once we come back, there is more to talk about, including memorable or exciting experiences. Right here on Tracks, don't go anywhere. We are talking about sailing around the world. Alright, so that was Born Viva, a very, very nice arrangement, that one as well. Right now we are talking to Fabian Fernandez, and he's a sailor with the Peninsula Sailing Club. We've been talking about sailing the world. And Mr. Fabian, can you share any memorable or exciting experiences that you had while you were sailing?
Okay, to me, I would say that the icing on the cake, the euphoria that I felt was the time when I tied up the boat in Hout Bay, Cape Town. Simply because, to me, it has completed the crossing of the most difficult ocean of the three. When we are referring to the three, we are talking about Indian, Atlantic, and the Pacific Oceans. Indian Ocean is generally considered to be the most difficult of the three oceans. One is the completion of that, and I'm already now in the Atlantic, which means I'm already starting to embark on my second ocean crossing.
Yeah.
And the thing is because after all the planning, everything has been done. Now Destiny has arrived safely with a crew and in good order. The boat has arrived safely in Hout Bay, Cape Town. And to me, the completion of this, because like I said earlier, it's always the leaving that is the most difficult. And now we have finished that. And now we're going into the next phase of the voyage, which is to cross the Atlantic, get to the Pacific, and then eventually cross the Pacific and back to Malaysia.
Wow.
So to me now comes the second part of my voyage, which is the Atlantic Ocean. So the finishing of this is a very big event for me.
So the Atlantic, where are you leaving and where are you heading to?
Okay, I will leave from Cape Town towards St. Helena. That's where, in case now Napoleon just played in the cinemas, Napoleon was actually exiled in St. Helena the second time.
Yeah.
And that's the island somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic. It's a British colony where I will stop there and then eventually head towards Brazil.
Okay.
And hence will complete the Atlantic crossing and then head towards Panama Canal, cross over and get to the Pacific, hopefully by the July of next year.
So it's going to be about a 6-month trip.
This will be a long trip, but again, all the sailing is not done continuous, it's with stops.
Yeah.
So the longest we would sail would be between Cape Town and St. Helena would be about 14 days. And then from St. Helena to an island off the coast of Brazil called Fernando de Noronha, and that's about 14 days again. And then you would hit the coast of Brazil, and then you work your way up.
All right. And you're doing this solo?
For my first leg, which was the Indian Ocean, I had crew with me because there's too many uncertainties. I didn't know a lot of things. I didn't know how I would be at sea, whether it was something that I could manage. Now I've gone through, and after crossing the Indian Ocean, I think now I would like to do it alone, simply because it's time for me to push that boundary again.
Yeah.
Getting the first one, now is the second one. Push that, crossing the Atlantic Ocean. Once I get to Brazil, I'll realize whether I want to do it anymore alone, or I want to do it with someone or with a group of people. Then that's the second step. But for now, I'm psyching myself up for a solo voyage.
All right. Good luck with that. And I think that will be the upcoming adventures that you'll be talking about. Are there any other goals that you're planning to pursue?
You see, after I found that one of the things that we lack as individuals, even myself included, is that the feeling that we have that we have been brought up in a manner that always pushes us to look for material things.
Yes.
Now, I know I'm not going to be popular because I'm saying this, but it's not about that. You'll have to look at things. Because people say, you're very successful. Of course you can do things. You do not have to be successful. I know of a guy who lost his limbs. He doesn't have an arm and a leg. And yet he has been managed to sail around the world. Now, solo on top of that. Okay,
Wow.
So now you talk about determination, grit, and all these things. These are values that we can put on ourselves, irrespective of whether we are sailing or whether we are climbing up a mountain or whether we are crossing a big desert. What this determination, grit, the willpower to do things is something that we need to start pushing young adults also, not only older people, but to have this thing inside them that will propel us to the next level. Now, this is something that I think we are lacking because we are becoming too contented with our lives, which having things that are around us so easily obtainable. You know, Malaysia has gone through a phase of many years, and now we are actually in a very good part of ourselves. You know, the country is developing, things are getting better, and this is a phase where everybody tends to get complacent with oneself. Now, a big salary is nice to have, but like I said very early on in my interview, you can survive without. Because we came with nothing, we're going to go with nothing. That's the message that I want to send to people, that, this is important. You need to look at these things.
And for the final question for today, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start sailing seriously?
Okay, you need to, of course, first don't get seasick, preferably. So you have to do some basic sailing courses. Try to sail around. And once you have that, you don't get seasick, because it's going to get very uncomfortable if you're on seasick meds while you're and you're going to be drowsy and things like that. But having spent time as a sailor before in the marine environment, I know that some people overcome this. Not all of them are perpetually seasick till forever. Some actually overcome that. You need to first be able to do this, and then once you know it's something, then you'll have to think that, look, I'll be moving very slow. I'll be moving at speeds that are, as once my son put it to me, a rooster actually runs faster than a sailboat. Because it does something like 15 kilometers an hour on a sprint. But like I explained to my son, but the rooster can only do that for probably a minute at the most, and is all
Gone.
Whereas a sailboat will be able to do this for days or weeks.
Absolutely. Right. So, of course, you know what? There's a lot of very interesting aspects that we spoke about today. And thank you so much for taking your time. And we wish you all the best with your Atlantic Lake. And we hope to have you again maybe after that.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe in July we'll listen to your Atlantic as part of the story, and we'll see what happened in St. Helena. Right. So thank you so much, Mr. Fabian. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here today. And we wish you all the best, all from everyone of us here at TRAXXfm. And with that, I think it's about time that we end the interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you.